Thank you very much for the presentation. I'm going to speak about innovation, and if we want to speak about innovation, the theme, we need to put into a context, and the context is the evolution of society. So this presentation will be different because I will focus on the society in general to start. It will be the first part of this presentation. And the second part will be focused on football, soccer for Americans or Australians. Human being has always created some tools to reduce physical work. So, for example, we have created the hammer, pliers, ball or cup. In fact, these tools are just an extension of the body functions. So most of innovations are an extension of the body functions. For example, hammer, you take the hammer, it's your elbow and the fist. Pliers, it's the same, it's just your thumb and your finger. The cup or the ball, it's just the palm of your hands. So most of innovation are extensions of your body function. If we want to speak about the evolution of society, we have to take what's happened in the start of the 20th century. Most of the jobs were in the farms and in the manufactories. And here, the most important for these people was the manual workers. It was the time of the blue collars. And they worked a lot physically. Energy spent per worker was very, very high. And if you compare with today, the energy spent per worker has been dramatically reduced. With the tractors, with the robots, with the mechanization, we work physically less today, much less, much slower. At the start of the 20th century, 75% of the jobs were in the farm and in the manufactories. And today, just 22% of the jobs. At the start of the 20th century, you got 45% of the jobs in the farms. Today, it's less than 2%. So it's the end of the Neolithic age. Nobody spoke about that, but it's important. It's a new world. And in the future, the energy spent per worker is going to be reduced again with the autonomous tractors and with the robotization as well. Because today, when you are a manual worker, you pilot just a machine. And in the future, we can expect to see some robots to do this job. So here it's innovation. But it generates also some problems. For example, obesity. Now we have more and more obese people. So it's an opportunity to create some gyms. So we have more and more gyms today. And also to develop some applications to quantify the energy spent every day and to follow the official recommendation in terms of physical work. What's happened to our body in terms of physical work is happening with our brain. Who knows here, by heart, the phone number of his best friend? Who knows? Nobody? Okay. Who doesn't choose GPS? Okay, everybody, nobody? In fact, as we said, most of innovations are an extension of the body functions. And here, we got computer, smartphone, it's an extension of our brain. And with the memory, your memory is less reliable than the computer. Just to memorize the phone numbers, your smartphone is better than you. So it's good society, it's a new society, but it changes the world. Because you can save your mental energy for other things. But do we do that? So if your smartphone has a better memory, the robots are better workers, how are we going to survive? Okay, we are still better in sports. So it's a chance. But what will be the qualities required for a human being in the future? the World Economic Forum answer to these questions. On the left, you can see the competencies required today in 2018. In the middle, you have the trend of the competencies or qualities required for 2022. And on the right, you have the declining competencies. The red box corresponds to the both qualities required today and in 2022. In fact, what is required today and in 2020, so for the future, is creativity. Creativity is very important. Innovation, that's why there is this Congress. Active learning. Today, we can access to the information with your smartphone from everywhere. And information doesn't mean knowledge, so there is also something to create on this way. Originality, creativity, leadership, and emotional intelligence. In fact, we are committed to be smarter and clever by optimizing our cognitive functions. We need to cultivate also our difference from the robots if we want to survive. Okay, here it was the first part on the evolution of society. Now I'm going to speak about what we are going to do in the French Federation. So we are going to create a laboratory, and I'm going to present you some hints of our methodology. So as we said, our smartphone makes our life easier because we can get access to all information from everywhere. And immediately, it's a new thing as well. Before, if you wanted information, you had to go to the library. Today, with your smartphone, you got access to the information and to the library directly. But it generates also some new problems. How often do you receive unwanted messages? What is the quality of information as well? Here, it's the ability, the capacity of our brain to store information and data. And below, you have the daily news provided every day. Our brain is not able to absorb all of the quantity of information. And what's happened? We can see new diseases, new problems, such as burnout. Because with all of the information we receive, we are not able to treat all of them. The same thing is happening in football. Because after a game, you can get access to more than 3,000 variables. How do we treat that? How do you use all of these variables, all of this data? It's the same for after training. How many data can we receive? A lot, more than 3,000. So what do we do with that? The question is there to answer. Also, there is an opportunity for the future in that way. Classical organizations, they are focused on collecting data. Today, we want to collect data. And after, we have the treatment of this data and the decision-making at the end of the pyramid. After, with all of these informations, we expect to recruit a big data analyst who will do the job. And in fact, he will ask the machine to do the job and to find some relationships. In fact, it's not because you have some relationships that there is a causal effect. Sometimes there is no causal effect at all. So here it's important to analyze the quality and the quantity of information. In fact, when we have too much information with low quality of information, it's similar to obesity, as we previously mentioned. What we want to do, we want to reverse the pyramid. We want to start by the decision-making process. Which decision do you make? After the treatment, and after which information do we need to make the decision? And here, the human being is mastering the decision. It's different. Before it was a machine which was piloted the decision-making process. So I'm going to describe the different steps. So there are 3 steps. The first, what are the decisions made? What are the cognitive biases of the decision-making process? what are the consequences of the decision made, which information and data to provide, the level of importance in the decision process, and what is the level of reliability and validity of information and data provided. Here it's very important also to check the quality of the data. So here, just to identify the decision made, we need to make a survey. Here are some examples. Which strategy to implement for the next match? Which players to select? Which players are fully recovered between the two matches? Here are some examples of the decision we can make during a training process. And after, we have to identify what are the cognitive biases of the decision-making process. For example, emotions. When you are on the bench, for the coach, it's very hard because you have your emotions. Sometimes emotion can be fear to win or fear to lose. So the decision may not be rational all the time. We think all of our decisions are rational, but it's not always the case. The same for the peer pressure. We have peer pressure, for example, from agents, because they want to see their players to play. The coach can receive some pressure from the board because they want to sell some players. We have a bias of conformity when we are going to copy what the other coach do, for example. And after, we have to know we are much more sensitive to loss than gain. So that's why there is a lot of draw as well, because to take some risks, when you take risk, it's difficult and you can be affected by the irrational process during this period. The step 2 was which information and data to provide. In fact, in all of the measures, you have a signal and the noise. And in the communication, you have an emitter and a receptor. And between them, you have the signal, what you want to which message do you want to send, and between you have always the noise. And it's what happened when you receive, for example, unwanted messages. It affects your decision making. So noise can affect your decision making. When you receive too much information, you can be manipulated, and it affects your decision making. So the main question should be, what are the useful information to provide? And here we need to create some filters to identify the signal. Maybe the innovation will be to make some algorithm to identify which information to provide and to reduce the part of the noise. So the step 3 is how to improve the quality of the information received. So for that, there is the validity. How well does the measure measure what it's supposed to measure? So the criterion of validity determines correspondence of a test tool to a gold standard test. So here it's an example. You know your body mass, your body weight. It's 70 kilograms. You want to buy a new scale, and the new scale displays 77 kilograms. So there is a difference of 10%. Here, who will buy this new scale? Nobody? Okay. Reliability. The reliability is how reproducible is the measure. Yes, for example, here you are going to test your tool, here the scale. So you are going to test once, 77 kilograms. You start again, 75 kilograms. You start again, 78 kilograms. Will you buy it? No? I'm sure you already bought or sold products with a lower level of reliability. So here are an example of practical applications in the French Federation. So we have checked, for example, the validity and the reliability of GPS. We have identified which markers to use for recovery process. Here are the type of publication we have done on recovery, sleep, workload, injury prevention. When we have a question, for example, do we need to buy a new equipment? We can implement this type of study. Is it more, for example, is the whole body cryotherapy better than the cold water immersion? So science can help you to answer to these questions. And also we have compared the level of fatigue induced by a different type of surfaces, for example, synthetic pitch versus natural grass. So to conclude, I'm going to finish on the evolution of society. So football is directly linked to the Industrial Revolution, where the physical work was the most important. Today, it's still the case. In football, we like players when they run everywhere, when they spend a big amount of energy. We like this type of players. So what will be the future? In fact, I don't know. If we follow the evolution of society where the physical works has been decreased, we can expect to see a future for the E-League. But I think the real football, our football, should remain the dominant model. Here are the current main innovations which change the football. For the referees, the goal line technology, the virtual assistant referees, equipment in terms of shirts. We can expect to see more connected shirts in the future. Balls, boots. Same in terms of training methodology. It has been changed a lot with new technique, sport science, monitoring. So it's a big innovation. For video analysis, it's the same. Before it was paper and the pen. After it was the computer, and now we got data in real time. So it's a new challenge as well. And there is also some innovation in terms of fan engagement. The way to receive people in the stadium has been completely changed. So the next steps could be virtual reality and artificial intelligence instead of the traditional video presentation. Algorithm, as we said, to optimize decision-making process. But innovation is not only technology. If we take the example of the jumpers, when we let the athlete decide, they can be creative. For example, for the jumpers, they change the way to jump, and it helps to beat the records. And we need to think about creativity. As we said, we like hard workers, but we like also creative players. So we need to integrate that in our training process to get this type of players instead of wanting to stereotype the game all the time. So it's a balance to find. And I would finish by this citation from Michel Serres, he's a philosopher. And he said there is a light. In the light, you have the speed and the sight. Today in our society, we are focused. We are mainly focused on the speed. We want to go faster, 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 faster. But if you really want innovation, creativity, we need to be focused on the side as well. Thank you very much for your time and your attention.